Martinez, and I am the acting U.S. Attorney in New Mexico. And with me tonight is Luis Salcido from the Department of Justice. And first of all, we want to thank you for being here. Now that the Department of Justice report is out and you've had time to look at the findings and read the material, we're entering a new phase, and that phase is to work on the agreement. Your input as the community and the input of other stakeholders in the community is absolutely crucial in this process. Basically, what we're going to be doing with this input is we are going to be fashioning and forging an agreement that is going to be tailored to the strengths of our community and also addressing, obviously, the weaknesses that have been identified. So this is the roadmap that we have. Currently, we are working on the agreement. Where we're going on the roadmap is we want to get to that agreement, and once we believe that we have the input from the community and we have it forged in a way that is right, we are then going to seek recognition by the court to have a court enforceable agreement, what's referred to usually as a consent decree. So your input is crucial. Luis, when he starts talking to you, he's going to talk about the process tonight. And just to let you know, we already wanted to give people enough time to speak. So there's already been people that have been taken into the room next door who are already giving input. But this input is crucial in forging this agreement. At the end, when we ask the court to recognize it, it's going to be an agreement that's transparent, that the police should know exactly what's expected of them, that the community should know exactly what the agreement holds, and that it has integrity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Luis.
Thanks, Damon. My name is Luis Salcedo. I'm an acting deputy chief in this Civil Rights Division. I work in the Special Litigation section, and our work is to conduct investigations and remedy patterns or practices of misconduct by police. We've done this all over the country. The statute that we're enforcing came about as a result of the Rodney King incident back in the 90s in Los Angeles. The idea was that you could hold those individual officers accountable for that incident, but was that incident going to repeat itself because of poor supervision, poor training, poor recruitment and hiring? And the answer was yes. And so Congress gave the Department of Justice a tool that allows us to investigate a police department. We go in and look at it from top to bottom. We try and identify systemic problems within the police department, and we're given the authority to file a civil lawsuit against the jurisdiction, not against individual officers, but against the entire jurisdiction to remedy those problems. Now, 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Attorney and the Acting Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division announced the findings of our investigation. We found that there was a pattern or practice of use of excessive force that included deadly force and less lethal force, like tasers. We're now, as the U.S. Attorney said, in the solutions phase. We've identified the problem. We found that it was systemic. We found that it violates the statute that Congress passed that makes it unlawful for police departments to engage in a pattern or practice of misconduct. So now what do? Well, the statute allows us to file a civil lawsuit the way that any other individual who's been wronged by police or any other individual can file a civil lawsuit. Now, the next step that we have is to sit down with the city and negotiate an agreement. Well, why are we doing that? Why are we not just filing a complaint and taking the city to court? Well, litigating a pattern or practice case is going to take years. It's a complex case. We need to be able to prove not individual instances of misconduct, but a pattern. Okay? So the quickest way to get to a remedy, especially when we have a city that's willing to cooperate and has cooperated, when we have members of the community who've been tremendously involved in offering solutions and their experiences with the police department, the best thing we could do is go right to a remedy. And that's why we want to sit down, negotiate with the city, negotiate a settlement agreement that's a voluntary agreement But before we finalize anything, we want to hear from you, because you're the consumers of police services in this city. And it's important that your voices be also heard as part of this agreement. The Department of Justice will oversee this agreement along with the federal court. Once it's approved and it's filed with the court would have to approve it. There would be an independent monitor that would oversee the reforms and ensure that the police department is implementing each of the measures in a transparent way so that you all know the progress that's being made. Now that's critical because part of our goal here is to restore trust. Restore trust in the police department. There are many good, hardworking men and women that work for you every day, that put on their badge and want to keep you safe and keep us safe. We need to restore trust, your trust in your police department. We also need to give them the skills and the tools that they need to be successful. So we want to make sure we set them up for success. The Department of Justice will, as the U.S. Attorney and Ms. Jocelyn Samuel said a couple weeks ago, we're here until the agreement is implemented. It could take years, but it will depend on the pace of implementation. It's important that when we leave a department that is serving you better, that you can trust in, that you can tell the difference in the daily interactions that you have with the police department. It's not just about better policies or better training. It's about the interaction that you have and that you have when you get stopped by the police. You want to have the trust that you're going to be treated fairly and that you're not going to be mistreated by the police department. So we want to leave behind systems, better training, better supervision, better oversight, stronger accountability by the police department. We want to leave that before intact and in place, built when we leave. We've done this work across the country. We are currently monitoring agreements in the Virgin Islands, in Puerto Rico. We have a consent decree in New Orleans. Our work is about systemic reform, and your voice is important to that. I want to emphasize again, the men and women of the police department are working hard. We did find problems. We need to go back and look at specific incidents to identify whether there was a pattern or practice of misconduct. But now we want to go forward. And now the focus is on solutions. The way we thought we'd maximize your input is to set up small focus groups next door where you can offer your suggestions, your thoughts, your ideas. The team that worked the investigation up, that sat through reviewing thousands of pages, writing with police officers, interviewing commanders, they're next door. You have a chance to sit with them in groups. Hopefully some of you have gotten numbers. We'll be calling people by numbers, and in fact, those interviews have already started. So what we ask is that you take the time, share your thoughts, share your feedback. We know that not everyone is going to agree with our findings. What we want to focus on now is solutions and going forward. And so the forum we've created is small focus groups next door. We're going to do this again tomorrow and Wednesday. The U.S. Attorney and I will stick around here with you while you're waiting. We'll talk with you. I know some of you have questions and are uncertain about what the next steps are. So if we haven't answered those questions, those sort of immediate questions, we'll hang out here and chat. In the meantime, your input will have the greatest impact speaking directly with the team, because they're going to be negotiating the agreement with the city. And what we've done here is we've written our toll-free number. If you decide that you don't want to sit next door and you want to reach out to the DOJ team, you can do so by calling toll-free. The number is up on the board, 855-544-5134. We also have an email address that is monitored by the team. If you want to do a phone interview, if you don't have time to stick around today, this is just one way of getting your input. So have folks gotten numbers at the door? If not, there are numbers that are being set up. I'm going to let folks know that we're ready to take the next group next door. We're going to hang out here and chat with you all. I know that you all want to talk, but we want to make sure that the input really gets to the team. We'll hang out here with you while you're waiting to be called into the next group. So thank you very much. Elizabeth, can we check and see what group they're on?
Are there specific topics for these groups?
They're focus groups, and they're built around trying to find solutions. So it's your sense. Well, exactly. We've identified 8 areas in our letter where we want to provide some remedies. If you all think there should be 9, 10, let us know. We're all ears, and we're next door for that. We'll hang out with you a little this evening here in this room while folks get called next door. So thank you very much. We're going to call people by numbers, and we're just going to hang out here. So we're done. Thank you very much.
Name is tomorrow and Wednesday, you said?
Yes. Same time tomorrow, 5 to 7 tomorrow, and Wednesday. Oh, yeah. There are numbers at the desk up front. Okay, so we're just going to hang out here. Feel free to come up and ask us a question.
Are we not going to be able to ask questions and listen to the rest of the people here and talk? I mean, when you say you're hanging out, what does that mean?
We're here to listen and talk to you while folks are being called to the next room.
As a group,
Because
so
we're-
they can get their opinion
Yeah.
out, they choose.
Make sure you get a number, because that's the input that you're going to have. The numbers are outside.
Excuse me. So I'm just confused because last summer this process happened. And if we did not have a specific, because people like me who have white privilege and don't have racial profiling, economic profiling, these kinds of things going on in relation to our police, we may not have a specific incident to report to you. And that left us completely out of the process. Meanwhile, we are here in the community having serious concerns about kinds of things. And when you say we're not looking back, we're looking forward, I want to know if that's the sort of Barack Obama, we're not looking back at criminal activities that happened before now, we're just looking forward to solutions. So I'm concerned about that, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. And then I'd like to hear, how are we in groups? Do we get numbers? Are we going in groups only with numbers? Or how is this process working? Thank you.
You can grab a number up front.
Right.
And next door is part of the team, and that's where you can give your feedback, whatever type of feedback you want to give.
But we're not doing it as a community.
Not in this group here.
Is there any community that's going to participate in this? Or are we just participating as individuals?
Well, it won't be you as an individual. I'm not sure how big the groups are. It'll probably be 10, 15. So it's going to be groups of 5 speaking next door to the DOJ team.
With a number. So if we want to be in a group of 5, we're going to get a number.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And when we held these meetings during the investigation phase, we were collecting facts to determine whether there was a violation of the statute that we're enforcing. And so here we want to be as broad as possible and listen to your ideas. And so the agreement should reflect the community at large. And so there are numbers up front.
This is the monitor chosen.
Go ahead.
Well, the monitor, at this point, that would be part of the agreement. So, for example, Mr. Salcido, by working around the country, has worked on a number of consent decrees, and we're aware of individuals who have that experience. But at this point, the monitor has not been chosen.
I understand that, but who's got the weight? Is, I guess what I'm asking. If you come up with a list of 3 or 4 people who think appropriate monitors, does the APD come up with a list of people and you all negotiate?
Can't hear you. Monitor.
Well,
It seems that, the reason I'm asking the question.
Sure. The question is about the monitor. Who picks the monitor? Does the APD have input or not? And the community. So that's the question. What we're trying to do with this process is allow you to give input at this point. Let me just be clear, the monitor has not been picked. There has not been individuals that have been selected at this point. So in going next door, I would ask that that be part of the input that you give. All right? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pardon me? Oh, yes. Let me introduce Scott Greenwood, who's here. Scott Greenwood is representing the city in negotiations. He's here in the back if you'd like to chat with him also while we're waiting. Wave your hand. Scott. Mike's over there.
Didn't give me one answer, one going right there. Where my thoughts back. I said my thoughts
Hello, everybody. Hello. Please don't leave this room right now. Please, please. Mr. Martinez, a lot of people here are saying they've misinformed us. Please don't leave the room, okay? You haven't been misinformed. Let me tell you what's happening, okay? DOJ is trying to meet, I'm meeting with them too. I appreciate every single one of you taking the time to be here. Don't leave. They have to figure out how do they get each and every one of you to express what you need, what we need to see for improvements in Albuquerque. Okay, we know it's all about Albuquerque. We know it starts at the top, it goes all the way to the bottom. How do we deal with it all? We're a poor city. Walking out isn't going to get us there. Trying to process it, move it forward. They've afforded us 2 locations. One where people who have actual complaints can actually talk to an investigator right now. Then they've given us this community forum for everybody else who maybe hasn't had a bad issue but who has concerns. I really implore you, don't walk out if you haven't been misinformed. Let us start the bill rolling here, and you'll see that.
Well, as a community, we can all, we sound ready to speak out with each other and discuss it amongst ourselves. We don't have to leave. We don't
Right.
need someone in front of the room to listen. We can listen to
Exactly.
each
And that's what we're trying
that's how you come together as a community.
Right, that's what we're trying to do. So I worked with you in the community. I worked with a lot of you. Let's see how we can have this happen and then not be chaos. Because they need us to help them too.
And let me just announce that I have numbers. If you want to go next door and speak to somebody, please, I have the numbers.
Question. When are we first going to get to see preliminary agreements, the things that y'all, the DOJ is asking for on our behalf? I mean, when is that going to be available and where can we see it before the agreement happens? As it
Because we have
moves
input
forward?
into it.
I mean, I think we want to move quickly on trying to get to an agreement.
Who else needs a number?
I'll write the web address of the Civil Rights Division where you can see agreements that we've reached with other jurisdictions. So you can see the type of remedies we've obtained in New Orleans, in Seattle, in Portland. You'll get a sense of sort of what we're looking for in terms of policy changes, training requirements, supervision.
But they're just going to cut and paste it, or is there a specific one for Albuquerque?
This is your opportunity to make this an Albuquerque agreement.
Something that I believe is important is in-depth psych evaluation for the particular police officers going into the police. I did, and I'm going to come to the next meeting.
Should have given her input again. And again.
You're right, Tim.
About the consent decree. Why do we need a consent decree if under the article of the Constitution, their oath to service is enough consent decree to fire them for doing illegalities, not being loyal, not doing their job like they're supposed to? Ms. Lopez just ran me out of there earlier. She didn't want to hear the rest of the story.
Well, they're caught. They here to listen to us.
You're only given a couple of minutes to say what you need. And
I was called a terrorist on live national TV on Channel 4.
Yeah, wow.
My family has been shot on the west side. The Journal reported this. She was an informant. She put herself in that predicament. Sad state of affairs. Another lady was shot, same gun. Another man was shot, arson investigator, same gun. After being interrogated by the police department. So obviously the cop killed the other 2 women. The informant. And
then I told the arson investigator, you can take the blame. And a lot of people in here have lost their families. I've lost my life. I became homeless and I can't even live here. She didn't want to hear this story. I was born here. I went to get a birth certificate, and the lady at the office said, I'm sorry, I've been here 6 times. She chased me off. That caused me to call her supervisor in Santa Fe and say, what do I have to do to get my birth certificate? Shoot myself in the foot? The governor sent a police officer to my house, arrested me on UNM campus. Then I was called a terrorist by Channel 4, Eric's Connor. I couldn't tell this story to the city council.
The police department that
Okay,
was reported.
and now I still live in Santa Fe, homeless, caused by the police department. I feel very sad that these people have lost family. I haven't lost, I've lost one man family member. But you guys are like telling these people, these are the forums over here, these ladies just listening to stuff and say, get out.
So the purpose, respectfully tonight, is to give the community an opportunity to do this.
The Constitution gives us all the authority. My question is this: what do you do for the community? You know, you have this level, this part here where the police arrest. I understand that part. Then you got the prosecutor. Now, this distance to the prosecutor is where you destroy lives. Get people in here that get their name on the list, arrest records, and they can't get a job, they can't get their lives together. And you won't just immediately come to a conclusion and say, hey, maybe after the arrest, we need to revert and come back to that court case, revisit it immediately, and drop the charges, expunge the charges, because the person was found not guilty by 12 people of his peers. Instead of ruining someone's life like mine, and then I'm not welcome in my hometown to do my own computer business in the largest city in the nation, or the largest city in my state, and survive while I'm still homeless.
So respectfully, again, tonight, the opportunity, we're trying to give the community an opportunity to speak about the findings, and to have an opportunity to talk to the DOJ person.
It's real disheartening to see the community hurt the way they are. I'm part of the community. I'm not even here. I came from Santa Fe to explain this to this lady. You know, and now I finally got approval in Santa Fe to sue for their wrongdoing. And all they had to do, folks, I walked into a police station, found it open, hit a 0, it opened for me. I walked in, I called them and said, hey, I got your police substation open. They came and arrested me, took my papers out of my evidence bag, took it and gave it to the Channel 4, and it was all about terrorism when I was reading for UNM college. It was really simple. They never did their duty. They never put the stolen report in. IA refused to complain against the 2 officers who didn't do their job. Very simple. And I went to court, and it cost me my life. The jury, the judge, took the district attorney in the back, and he chewed the district attorney out and said, what are you doing? Then they had to refile the charges from felony breaking and entering of a police station to unlawful use of a public place. I called them for help. The 2 officers are sitting there discussing, and the lady says, I don't want to really charge him. Well, fucking charge him in.
You know, and those statements that you're making, so many people in this room either have felt something or they've seen something, and you don't, I don't want to see your issue discounted either, but let's see if somebody else, one other person, has the courage to stand up and say something, because that's what the DOJ's here. They want to hear from you, and you are a very important story, and I'm sure we have a million others
The
in
city
here.
council doesn't even want to fire these police
But
officers.
that's,
They never have, they never will.
And they should. The city oversight committee, so we're just seeing the same stories happen here with the DOJ. But you still have, I would just like to know if you're going to be able to, let's revisit the case and pull these charges off of people. You're ruining people's lives with the charges that exist on them. They can't even get a job.
So
thank you.
let me ask one more time, is there anyone else that wants a number to go next week? I'm going to put them at the desk if anyone else is interested.
How are we being called?
They're coming in here, and they're calling the numbers.
Great.
But sir, do you understand what this gentleman is saying and the implication for all of us? He's basically speaking for everybody. Do you understand? He's basically saying, what are you gonna do? Is anything can be done? That's basically what he's saying. And I see you skip back to the numbers. Tell us something.
Hell with those numbers.
This is a very important time. Because
sure.
the community input is what's going to forge this. And once we get an agreement that court enforces the document, that is going to be.
But when they break the agreement, is all you just said is all they can do is sue. You're gonna file a lawsuit against APD, it's gonna take 2 years. They break the agreement we have with them that's called the Constitution every single day, and their attitude towards us is we'll just sue us.
Well, what's
I
gonna
mean, the
happen-
city's paying out $24 million. You're just like doing the shell game of responsibility. I mean, what are y'all gonna do with the money if you sue APD?
Okay,
it even-
the remedy that we have in the law that we're enforcing allows us to seek only injunctive relief. So we can only seek an order from the court ordering the police department to change its policies and procedures. We cannot seek damages.
So if they don't,
Individuals have the right and the ability to file lawsuits for damages. We are not authorized under the law to seek damages for individuals. What we're trying to do is to prevent the incidents that we've identified in this letter from occurring in the future. We do that by, once the agreement is submitted to the court and it's approved, it takes on the aura, it becomes a court order, and it becomes enforceable as a court order. And so we can, is available. There's tools and remedies to try and make sure that they're going to comply with that agreement. And a critical part of that is having an independent monitor that's going to be overseeing the implementation of the law.
Excuse me, sir, excuse me. I think what a lot of people would like to know is, are the APD going to be held accountable for past injustices? You know? I mean, are they just going to sweep what's already happened under the rug and we take it from this point forward? And the people who've lost family members and who've been treated unfairly, that's going to be just swept under the rug, or we're going to be able to do that, or this thing forward, or what?
It's not going to be swept under the rug because the information that came to us from the people who had experiences with the police department allowed us to make findings that allow us to seek these reforms. Without the information that people brought to us about what happened with them in the police department, without that information, we could not have gotten to this point. So that information is what was critical in helping us reach our findings.
Just to add on to what he was saying, is the mayor, the district attorney, and the chief of police going to be held accountable for past shootings that they said was justified? Because they've been up there lying to us for years. Now, are they going to be held accountable, and are they going to be charged? And I mean, everybody in this room is frustrated because we feel like, I think we feel like, we're getting sort of the shuffle here. And I hope that's not what's happening, because I'm personally surprised that the Department of Justice is even here, because I thought you guys would take a dive, you know, and whitewash this whole thing. But you didn't, and that's commendable. But what are you going to do now? Are we just going to go on, as the mayor said, and sort of forget about the past? Well, there's a lot of people like this gentleman here that has problems in the past. I'm sure a lot of people in this room have personal situations that deal with the police. Well, I got a personal problem with the mayor, the district attorney, and the chief of police, because the mayor is sort of like not accepting responsibility. And you folks are going to have to force him to accept responsibility, because we can all agree and sort of, talk all this legalese stuff, but something has to happen. And you folks have to make it happen, because it's not going to happen if you leave it up to the city, because the city has had their chances for the last years and they haven't done anything. How many more killings is it going to take for the mayor to get off the dime, to bring in a chief of police who knows what he's doing, to pass it on to the other, to pass it on to the officers in the field? And I'm not here to point fingers at the specific APD officers, because I know that a police officer's life goes from totally boring to life-threatening in seconds. And that's a hell of a job. But the people at the top have to not only bring people in to know what they're doing, they have to hold people accountable, and if they make mistakes in the past, they have to be held responsible. It can't all just, well, we'll just forget about it and move forward. Because that's what I'm hearing from the mayor and this incompetent chief of police that he has now. Obviously, the chief is in over his head. And there are a lot of professional police officers and police leaders in this country which they could have brought in instead of a crony of the mayor, which is obviously doesn't know what he's doing. And all they don't do is act defensive. You know, anytime they put a camera in front of them, they're either defensive or they take the attitude like, this is our system and you're not going to make us do anything. And the people in the community and everybody in this room are tired of hearing that. And you folks, the Department of Justice, has to force them to do something. We all just can't get along. You have to start being a son of a bitch and kick ass and make the mayor do something.
Basically, what he's saying, I think there's not only issues within our police department, but throughout the whole political system. Not every single person, but I believe that's what he's pointing out the issue. Our mayor is equally responsible, and we have not felt he has come forth and taken any responsibility for the things going on under his watch.
What are you going to do with all of the crimes documented in your own report? I mean, 6 people killed, and you said it was unjustified. It was unconstitutional. It was, I mean, is there a crime? You guys are working for the top law enforcement group in the United States. You're under the Attorney General of the United States. Why isn't there going to be some kind of a prosecution, indictment of these people? I mean, you said right here they committed murder. They committed aggravated assaults repeatedly. It's against the law. It's against the Constitution.
I have to say that a couple of years ago, the police officers that took my friend's life, I was trapped in my house for 14 hours. The SWAT cars all over the place. They were totally, they killed my friend. My neighbor tried so hard to get her to our street, but the police did not let her get into the street. They barricaded her. They shot off at least 70 rounds of that stuff that stinks. I don't know what it's called, but it's so bad now. The house, she cannot live in it. And I just can't believe that they couldn't get the mother involved to talk to him. I think if the mother would have been involved, you know, because they was right, and then after they killed him, because he was looking at them. It was horrible.
It's important that, you know, I go back to the statute that we're enforcing, the law that allows the Department of Justice to investigate police departments came as a result of Broad and the thought was that you can charge those individual officers with a crime, but those types of incidents were only going to happen over and over and over because it wasn't just about 4 individual officers. It was about poor supervision, not being trained on how to de-escalate, having access to a lot of weapons that you may not need. And so the tools that we have at our disposal to address the problem that is in that, the problems that are documented in that letter, is to seek a court order to have the city change its policies and practices. And the reason this is forward-looking is because we're looking to prevent the types of incidents that have been shared with us, that have been documented in this letter, from happening in the future.
But the police are still killing people. I mean, we had a little young woman who had teenage offenses. I mean, she wasn't a felon, she was nothing. This is happening all the time. What is the standard operating procedure when you have a vehicle that's parked on the street that's been stolen? You find identification inside that ties somebody to it, and then you hunt them down for hours until you finally have the excuse to kill them. Did she have a gun? They say she did. We don't know these things. There's no evidence. I agree on this address now. I mean, it's crazy. We have children being shot by the police now. I mean, young people. This woman was a kid. She didn't have an opportunity to make her life better or not have this happen. Why did they chase her down in the middle of the night for 3 hours? They could have gone to her job and arrested her. They could have issued a warrant, but they hunted her down. This is the kind of thing we're asking. Why does this go on? It's outrageous.
what we're gonna see right now moving forward until everything's in place.
Let me make a clarification here. Can everyone hear me in the back? Sorry. The report that was disclosed and the 8 findings that came out, this was dealing with a certain time period, starting in '09 and it went to 2013. And this is looking at the systemic issues within the police department. And the ultimate goal in looking at the remedies is trying to get to constitutional community policing. So it's identified specific areas that need to be changed. For example, supervision, oversight, training, accountability and transparency. I mean, those are covered in the report. So what some folks are speaking about right now is you're talking about a criminal matter. We're not discussing that here tonight. We're talking about the system in place at APD, and that's what we're trying to address.
But each individual incident makes up this system. And how do you know it wasn't a throwaway gun? And one of the specific issues that you folks raised was that the cops weren't using the lapel cams. And lo and behold, when this girl got killed, the lapel cam didn't work. Isn't that odd? You know? I mean, this is the frustration. And I know a lot of people have a lot of stories, but you need to hear every one of them. Because this is what makes up the problem with the system. Well, the non-system.
And that's why we're trying to take it in groups so that all individuals within those groups have a chance to speak, have a chance to talk, and say their mind. And then also, one of the things we talked about earlier is if after today you also want to add something, or you just don't feel comfortable speaking in this kind of forum, you can also email this address or call this number and give something individually if you want to. The purpose here is trying to make the process DOJ as accessible to the community as possible.
I just heard from someone who had ideas on how to store lapel data, because it's now digital in a way that's encrypted, that's reliable. Those are the types of, and he's got an engineering background. So we want to hear your ideas. That's the reason we're having this forum and the meetings next door. We've identified the problems. They're in the 47-page letter that we've issued. We know there are problems. And we heard you in the year and a few months that it took us to get this done. We heard you, and it's documented in that letter. We now need to move to concrete solutions.
But see, none of this stuff is rocket science. But somebody needs to get off the dime and do something. Because obviously the city officials aren't going to do it. They haven't done it in years. People are still getting killed. So you folks in the Department of Justice are going to have to force them to do it. And my opinion is the only way to force somebody to do something is get their attention with a 2x4. And you have to do that to the mayor and whoever is the chief and whoever is the district attorney. And I believe that the individual officers will follow along if they have good, competent leadership.
The first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. And for 4.5 years, we keep being told there's absolutely no problem. It's okay. There's no problem. But here we have the same number of police killings as New York City in the same time period. What's New York City? 10 million people versus 500,000? There's something wrong with this picture. Even if you don't see it, and by the way, I apologize for just venting, but I think that's part of what we need to be doing here. But you need to understand the first level of frustration that we have that, sorry, I'm frustrated, is that this keeps on going. We appreciate what you've done, but at this point, we want something done. Right now, we understand your recommendations, we like your recommendations, but get it to happen, please. Because while you've been talking, people have been getting shot.
Can you give us an example of a city where the DOJ has been able to turn it around successfully?
Sure. Los Angeles Police Department, after their Rampart scandal, had a big problem with use of force, problems with searches and seizures. It was mostly their narcotics unit. and there were problems in the way that officers were being recruited into that unit. They were not being supervised. They were sort of seen as the elite, and they got away with what they did. And so what we did in Los Angeles, one of the changes that was a major sort of breakthrough was we made supervisors accountable for checking whenever someone was arrested, making sure you asked whether someone was injured and you checked for visible signs of injury, because you can't just rely on an officer to report that they've used force and that it's resulted in harm.
And how much did it cost?
It's a large police department. It's about 10,000 police officers. You know, part of it was the willingness of the city and the leadership of the police department to get the agreement implemented. It took about 8 years of DOJ oversight. After 8 years, we handed the reins back to the city. What the city did was they have a police commission, which is a civilian board that oversees policies and discipline. They were able to hire their own Office of Inspector General, and they were able to take on the responsibilities of the independent monitor. So the way we were able to successfully withdraw from Los Angeles and leave it better than it was before was to create systems that were sustainable. We don't want to create dependency from DOJ. DOJ cannot be here for 100 years policing the police. We need to create systems to help the police department do that, and mechanisms for you all to be involved in holding them accountable. LAPD is one. Another example is the New Jersey State Police, where they were stopping people in the turnpike for the color of their skin. We obtained a consent decree there. What the state did to impact not just the New Jersey State Police, but all police departments in the state, was they codified the terms of the agreement. They made the consent decree a law in the state. And that's how they were able to hold all law enforcement agencies in that state accountable for racial profiling. So that's one department, a second department that we work with.
Yeah, the thing is that we,
Los Angeles Police Department, like the New Jersey police, or did they just go in and act?
There's no takeover in the sense that, you know, DOJ is going to be patrolling these streets, right? What we're looking for.
That's what happened in Seattle.
No, what we're looking for is accountability with a federal court actively overseeing the reforms. And those reforms need to be implemented in a transparent way so that you all know what's happening. And as I started this presentation earlier, the way, sort of the true test of knowing whether the agreement is working is not whether they have new policies or new training programs, it's the way you're treated in the street. When you're stopped by that police officer, you feel like you're in danger. Should you fear for your safety? We want to get to a place where those interactions speak volumes about the place where APD is. In Los Angeles, an independent study group came in from Harvard School of Government. They did a study, they did a survey after the consent decree. They found that there was some disparity among racial groups, but generally people felt better about the police department. They felt safer. They were able to reform without depolicing. In other words, they didn't just stop handling crime, they continued to fight crime, but they did it in a way that respected the rights of the individuals who live there.
So we need to get a police oversight organization with some teeth, not with politics involved, where the mayor and the chief of police appoints half of them. We need some independent, free-thinking, outspoken people, men and women and minorities on this board that are going to come down on the chief and on the mayor.
Sir,
Because
this gentleman is having a hard time trying to get heard as well. I recommend that those of us who have spoke one time, give everybody else an opportunity to also speak. There's a lot of us and everything's important. Can we work like that?
the thing is that it seems like the DOJ is talking with a fox who's taking care of the chicken coop, and he happens to be the mayor of Albuquerque. We've been marching for a while. We've been going to every council meeting. We've gone to his office and red tagged him. Then at the end of the day, he says, I didn't know that was going on. Who's running the city? Who are the cops under? Who's the chief under? So we all keep on throwing it at all the things that are happening with the police and all that. We got to remember who in the heck ran this city. And that was okay for him to say, there's no problem, let a few more die. Until this guy in the base of the mountain gets killed, then all of a sudden it's an uproar, and you know who's gonna fix it? The same fox that started it.
I think there was an expectation.
I'd like to hear from them.
I think there was an
Sorry.
I think the
Sir,
people were led to believe that tonight was a forum where the leadership of the city would be here to help resolve some of these problems. And I think that's why most people were here.
Well, let
Because
me
they
be
wanted,
fair to
well,
this.
there was it's not just them. I used to be the sheriff of Bernalillo County. So what I'm speaking at is that there was supposed to be interaction with all the stakeholders, with all the people that were supposed to involve, coming up with problem solving to get this thing helped resolve. And I know they're speaking to them individually, but I think these people were led to believe that there was going to be a forum where they're going to be able to interact with the leadership. And that's
We never
absent.
advertised this meeting as a meeting
No,
with
but I'm
city
saying,
leadership.
but that's why the communication needs to be better. The communication, when you're communicating to the media, has to be better. People have to know what the expectation when they're coming to these meetings, so you don't have this kind of dialogue going on.
I announced at one point, I don't know if you were here, that one of the representatives of the city is here. Sounds like someone else, there's other folks here. I mean, you're free to talk to folks that are in the room.
No, I understand that, but it needs to be communicated better to the media how these forums are going to take place and how they're going to be monitored, who's going to be the mediator.
They're not going to be joining.
You're channeling us over there.
Hey,
You're
Sheriff, we
channeling us
remember
out.
you.
I went over there, checked in, got my number, went over there. Was ushered back to the back table. The lady back there was so interested, was too much interested in cutting her eyes from me to the door, to listen to one word we had to say. I called it to her attention, I said, you want solutions, the first one would be listen to what I have to say. Well, sir, we have to hurry things along, we got a lot of people who want to speak. That's no solution to anything.
I think people here need to know that there are members here of the city council. Where are you? Albuquerque?
City council.
City council,
State senator.
Pena, state representative,
Senator Michael Padilla.
state senator, here we are. You're voted, the folks you voted into office are here. So you're not underrepresented. Ms. Pena, congratulations, right into the fire.
Okay, this is a process comment. I just came from the room next door. Most of the tables are empty. If you have suggestions and solutions in mind and you want to be heard, my experience of sitting over there at a table was two people listened to every word we said and wrote down everything we said. Representatives of DOJ. So if you're in here and you're feeling like you want your suggestions heard, I just came from next door and those tables are mostly empty.
They're taking good notes over there, folks.
That was the purpose of this meeting, correct? Just to give our introduction. You are not going to give us any solutions at this point, just to give input,
So if
and
you
you're
want
going
to
to
get
take
your
it back and
input, walk
dissect.
on next door and do so.
The team that spent all, the months reviewing records, reviewing incidents are all next door, and they're the ones that are taking your input.
No, they just want the input on the record.
Yeah, I was just going to say, once again, I'm Senator Michael Padilla. I came tonight simply to listen. I don't have any control over what happens in the city of Albuquerque. I came to listen. One thing I would ask of you, though, is it was incredibly difficult for me to even get here by 5:30, so I was kind of sneaking in the back of the room, you might have noticed. This is a working class neighborhood. I come from this area. My family's working class, and it's very difficult for people to get to a meeting at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, you can see that there's a great interest in this topic. We absolutely want to work with you and want to help. But can you please be a little more cognizant and recognize, who you're going to be meeting with? I think you'd have 400 or 500 people here if you didn't have a meeting at 5 o'clock. People work until 5 o'clock. So if we could be a little more sensitive to that, I would really appreciate that. And then I also felt like maybe that was, sure.
We were not going to be doing a presentation or a town hall with an open mic. What we wanted to do was have people meet next door in small focus groups to provide their input. And so that was going to happen on a rolling basis as people came in.
And I will also say, if you could
From
please,
5 to 7 p.m.
if you could please communicate a little better with the mayor's office, because I called there to find out when this meeting started, and nobody seemed to know. So I know that's trying to, just saying, but if you could, because a lot of people are going to do, that's just human nature. They're going to call the mayor's office, call, 311, call some organization to find out. So if you could, that'd be wonderful.
The chief of police.
And why wouldn't you?
Why would they use any special invitations?
The purpose of tonight's meeting was to allow the community to give feedback. And again, I can't...
You on the hot seat, but it'd be nice to have them standing up there.
Well, I can't stress enough. I mean, you have so many stakeholders in this process that it is crucial for the community to give feedback. And I realize that there's some frustration tonight. I think most people are expecting just an open forum just to talk. But it's important for us to try to target and understand what people's feelings are. And let me put this in context. In the report that came out, there were eight areas where there were recommendations. We're trying to understand, obviously, what the concerns are, but also if there's any recommendations that can help us get to the criteria that eventually will be in this agreement. This agreement has to be something that's workable so that when our police officers are working towards this threshold, what they have to do, what they have to meet, they understand it. But also, it's important, and I realize I'm repeating myself at this point, it's important for the community to understand what this agreement is and why it's going to get us there to constitutional community policing.
It would have been nice to have these directly on paper for the public when we got here.
Well, sir, you can go to the U.S. Attorney's website.
I read the report.
Well, that's where I'm going. You can go to the report. Anyone can pull it down. You can read the 46 pages, and in the last several pages, it gives you the 8 areas of recommendation. And that's the framework in which we're trying to work and trying to come to solutions. Because one of the things that Mr. Salcido was talking about when he was asked that question about where he answered about LA is we want to get to a point where we understand what the APD has to do, but we also want to, as a community, make sure that APD accomplishes, that criteria.
I think everybody hears you and appreciates that you have to go through the process. I think a lot of the anger here is wondering how many more people are going to get killed like that before. I think a lot of people in this room, the anger is because they're wondering how many are going to get killed like that 19-year-old while all of this process goes through. That, from the face of it, that was so inexcusable. We've got a police chief who sits up there and says, beats the hell out of me to every question. It's astonishing.
And if this process is going to take 5 or 10 years, there could be a lot more innocent people that are going to get killed if there isn't action. My recommendation would be that, along with the DOJ, invite the administration to come in so that they can be heard by the community. I think that's one of the biggest things that I think we want is to be heard. Well, and along with the DOJ having the mayor's office.
You're being put on the hot seat. You don't run the city. The mayor and his gang run the city. They need to be here and be put on the hot seat and explain to us why they've been running the city into the ground. It's not your fault.
Yeah, the mayor didn't even come to the city council meeting.
Right.
He had an excuse that was, as an Elm Tree journalist said, it was a good excuse but bad public relations move. And to be honest, I don't think I'm alone in feeling that his response to this publicly, his statements have been rather tepid. And, and I'm going to go ahead and, I said next door that I feel that's the biggest important piece of this that the DOJ brings to this is the ability to apply pressure to City Hall. Because our civic leaders is where I lay the blame. Because we have a culture within the police department, as the DOJ's report has stated, that indoctrinates our new cadets into a culture of fear, where they see it as them versus the public. They're fighting for their lives every moment they're on the job. So of course they don't know or care about constitutional or community policing. And as long as we continue to have a city hall that stonewalls the public, or that teaches the public in the city that the lesson that if they want to be heard and taken seriously, they have to take to the streets and use graffiti and stop traffic on I-25, we're going to continue to have a problem. So I want to ask the DOJ to make sure that City Hall feels it, that they take it seriously, that the mayor's office is no longer solely in charge of appointing the chief of police, that perhaps that's a city council decision from now on. I'm not sure what the right answer is, but there's too much secrecy and too much denial from City Hall and too much lack of leadership to fix these problems in APD without them feeling a reason to change their attitudes there.
And we wanted to get as much information as we could when we sit down with the city. When Mr. Greenwood, who's here in the back, told us he wanted to participate, we said, of course, I think there are opportunities for us to come out and do joint events. I think for now it was important for us to follow up from 2 weeks ago when we issued the report to let you all know what the next steps were. And so we're trying to be as transparent as possible in sharing with you what will come next. What we're authorized to do is to file a lawsuit against the city to seek reforms, to make the reforms not just lip service or a contract with someone, but a court order that they're going to be accountable to the federal court, where there will be an independent monitor overseeing the implementation of those reforms for the long term, right? And so we don't leave until those reforms are implemented, and there's greater confidence in the community about the police department.
So what do I do if a cop beat me up? Just let it go under the rug, or who do I complain to about that? I mean, I'm a female, and for a guy to rough me up like that, an officer, you know, he could have dealt with it in other ways. I'm a female, you know, for a guy to slam me all over and bruise me up. So who do I talk to? I'm facing felony charges. I got booked with 2 misdemeanors, and I got jailed with a felony charge. Who do I talk to?
You know, I know there's a lot of mistrust out there of the police department. When there's we're working towards getting a consent decree in place where we'll have an independent monitor. You should file a complaint. The difference now is that someone outside of APD that is going to be answering to the court and to the parties and to the community will be able to audit and make sure that those complaints are actually being reviewed, and that there's standards in the way that they're being investigated.
Yeah, because I have pictures of my bruises and everything, you know,
right.
so.
And the hope is, and what we expect to see from this consent decree is not waiting for a civilian to have to complain that they were beaten, but that officers have clear guidance on when they report. Anytime they use force, they should report it to a supervisor. You shouldn't wait for someone to have to come forward and say, they twisted my arm, they broke my, knocked the tooth out. That should be routine. We found problems with their policy and the way that they define force. How are you going to hold your officers accountable to report force if you're not defining even what that means? And so we need to fix those things because not just for your case, but for other people that are going to be having interactions with the police department. So, did you, yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like you're talking about something specific to you.
Yeah.
If I may ask, did you report it next door?
No.
Well, I can only advise that I would ask you to report it next door. Also, with your intent, if you wouldn't mind talking after this.
Okay.
If you would.
Okay, so let me introduce Scott Greenwood. Scott has been introduced to us as the city's attorney who's going to be sitting with us for negotiations. So he's agreed to be here. He's listened to some of the comments in the back. We allowed him to come in here and answer some of your questions. So
I appreciate it, Luis.
Share.
My name is Scott Greenwood. I am special counsel to the city for all matters related to this investigation, findings, and the creation of a world-class agreement that will make policing in Albuquerque both fully constitutional and effective. I am not a traditional police defense lawyer. I am a plaintiff's civil rights lawyer. I crafted the agreement in Cincinnati on behalf of the community, working hand in hand with the Department of Justice so that we could make that police department, which had excessive force problems running to the core, use of deadly force over a period of years, disrespect for the community. We fixed that problem in Cincinnati, and we fixed that problem by the community working through people like me and with the Department of Justice. So you have my pledge to craft an agreement with my counterparts and colleagues in the room that fixes the problems. It will fix the problems. I would not be here otherwise. It is possible to do it. It's happened in Los Angeles, it's happened in Cincinnati, it happened in New Jersey, and it will happen in Albuquerque. But it won't happen if people don't share your stories, either with the DOJ investigators and attorneys, or with people that my side will be sending out and organizing meetings like this and joint meetings as well. We are committed to reforms. You're going to see some reforms announced by the city in very short order that we hope, on my recommendation, will set the tone. This is going to be a different system than it was before.
Where do you work in relationship with Perry?
I'm sorry.
Where do you work in relationship with Perry? Rob Perry.
In relationship to him.
Where in the...
I report, the city is my client.
Okay.
The city, not an individual office holder, not the
City
chief of
council,
police.
or meaning the mayor?
The city.
Administration.
The city.
Meaning the administration.
The appointing authority, which would be the mayor and the CAO. My job is to negotiate on behalf of the community, not the police department. I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm the wrong guy if you expect a whitewash. I'm the wrong guy to hire because I've done this the right way before. I know what is in the findings letter, I know where it came from, I know why it was issued, and I know what it will take to fix it.
So is there going to be any immediate action that's going to take place? Like,
there will be immediate changes.
The officers to turn on the bell camera?
Yeah.
No matter what. That's something that should
Now, let me
have.
ask you a question, because this is something, I do a lot of work around this issue of on-body recording systems. Would it make a difference, in the opinion of the people in this room, if you had mandated use of the lapel cameras every time an officer talked to them? Would that make a difference? And should there be a penalty if an officer doesn't? Make sure that they do it.
That's already required.
But they don't do it.
Giving us access to that footage too in a timely manner that's not cut and pasted like they put out with Alfred Redwine and what I saw on the news. I mean, I don't believe that Mary had a gun. I don't think she did. I think the officer's lying, and it makes APD look bad when there's no footage. If they showed us footage of her pointing a gun at the officer, then case closed, it's over, she made a stupid mistake. But it looks to us like more, wrongdoing. Evidence.com, there's a story on the Journal that said that they're not even turning in the footage that they do get. They're not even submitting it into evidence.
See, that's where it goes down.
It's like hit or miss.
The camera's a joke.
Just so people know this.
APD knows how to get around all that stuff. If they want to lose it, they lose it.
My partner is the police chief in Cincinnati whom I sued into submission. He will tell you that. We fixed the problem. We can work with the city here and with the Department of Justice to address almost the same issues that we face. Almost the same issues.
Are you going after reform or restructuring?
Both.
Where my frustration lays is that my son was the Iraq war veteran that was killed in 2010, and they shot 17 young men. That Mr. Gomez, they shot his son in the back. It was proven in a court of law that officer violated my son's rights. It was proven in a court of law, and yet that man has been promoted, and he's been given more bullets, and he's not been indicted. He's not been held accountable for his actions. And so that's what I'm saying. There's going to be more killings. This is what they're trained to do. And until we indict some officers and send a clear signal to the whole police department that there is going to be accountability for your actions, we're going to status quo, situation normal. So there needs to be some officers held accountable for their actions. And until that happens, we're going to see more killings.
Another way to hold accountability is not to have police oversight committees which answer to the city, which have lawyers from the cities on them, which have a citizen-based oversight committee that has the ability to discipline, hire and fire, has investigatory abilities, subpoena abilities. That's the only way out of this, the real way. APDs, police officers are unreformable. The system's unreformable at this time. We need, sorry to say I don't know you, and I hope you do a good job, but I would ask you to partner with the community, with the citizens. We're calling a mass action this Saturday on Civic Plaza again. That's how we get results again, is when people go in the streets and demand accountability from their elected officials.
Your idea is exactly what needs to be shared with the city and with the DOJ. It's concrete ideas like
I
that.
have before you a family, and this is the daughter, and this is the son, and this is the wife. And they're terrified of being here because their husband and their dad got killed. And they haven't had a voice to be able to say those things. But every single one of you that's speaking here right now is their voice. And they can't go anyplace. And I think just for a minute, we can say who your husband's name was.
Alex Tinkovich. Shot in the back on October 31st, 2010, with a high-powered rifle at close range with no lapel camera on.
Wow.
Murdered. Shot in the back.
Gary walked right out the door, took a couple of steps. While he was laying on the floor, bleeding to death, they were still trying to handcuff him.
I have a question. I'm her sister. There was witnesses who saw this, and the cops wouldn't ask. They didn't want to interview the witness. They said they made the witness go away overnight so they can investigate her house, because bullets went into her house and they never got her statement. She saw everything from the minute he walked out the door. Never saw him with the gun. She said the minute he walked out, he was shot. But no one ever listens to her. She can't get an attorney to listen to her. Nothing.
This is one story of thousands that we have in this community. Literally thousands of people have been victimized by this police department. And until we start holding these officers accountable, it's going to continue.
One more thing, there was a camera on top of her house that Alex was installing for burglary, just to make sure, just because she's sick with cancer. A week later, after he was shot, that camera was removed. It was gone. We don't know what happened to it, who took it. It was gone.
And we can prevent more of these awful occurrences if we enhance accountability and build it into the system, but only if this community partners, really partners with the Department of Justice and with the city. It will not be easy. It was not easy in Cincinnati. It was not easy for me to sit down across the table from people who were in charge of a police department that victimized, brutalized, and killed my own clients. It was not easy for me to have people in your situation having to listen to justifications that they knew weren't true. But it is necessary for you, all of you, if you are committed to change in Albuquerque policing, it is essential for you to work with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice and with me so that we can really create fully constitutional policing in this city.
Excuse me. How long or how easy will it be to criminalize not using lapel cameras?
How easy will it be to what?
To criminalize, to make it a crime for police officers not to use the lapel cameras. What needs to be done for that to happen?
I can't speak to state statute.
Who decides that?
I don't know. There's not a department in the country that criminalizes non-use, but you can have a policy that says if you don't use it, you're fired.
And maybe, okay, if you don't use the lapel camera in a regular occurrence, I'm not saying fire the guy. Maybe the third time you fire the guy. But if you don't use the lapel camera in a situation in which people get shot, wounded, or killed, then in that situation, maybe the guy should be fired immediately and prosecuted for whatever.
Sure.
How do you change? I mean, I would not be here had not I seen James Boyd's footage. I would not, maybe I'm an idiot, I tend to believe the police. When I saw that footage, it really changed me.
When I saw that footage, and I watched it on the national news, I called my business partner and I said, what city does this remind you of? When you have protests in the street after a shooting that almost nobody can imagine could occur.
Moscow. So
Look like my city 12 years ago.
So in your situation, what it will take for the Albuquerque City Police or Albuquerque the City Council or whatever, put that in legislation or whatever you call it?
I don't know if it can be put in legislation, but I do know it can be put into policy. I have a model policy for these. It's in my policy. My policy says you wear the camera, you turn it on every time, and you bet and hope that there's video if there's a critical incident or a use of force. Because if you don't have video and you have the equipment with you, if it's not malfunctioning, there better be video in that device. Or you're going to hit the street for 30, 60 days or terminate.
So how long it may take to get that policy enforced?
I'll be making recommendations to the mayor. Exactly. And the whole deal policy.
Mayor, Barry and Perry, they haven't done a thing since he is the problem.
Where's Barry?
Well, he's hiding. He's hiding. He's a coward. Mayor Barry does not care about the poor people. He does not care about, your homeless, any skin color other than white. He doesn't care about. He cares about the rich only. He cares about his own political things that he wants to do in the future. He wants to be a congressman, and he don't want anything to interrupt that. We know his agenda. We know he's being run by Jay McCluskey, the same one that runs Susana Martinez. So, we can go on and on with this, but you got to get rid of Barry and Perry. That'll solve this problem. It'll help it. Very tremendous.
Thank you. Are you ready for that?
I have a question here.
They're open? Okay, is there anybody in the room
Yes,
who
I have a
wants to
question.
talk to the DOJ team that is not? The room next door is empty, and that was the reason why we wanted to have this forum. So if you haven't already, please go next door. We're wrapping up here. We're almost done. I assume folks that are still here have talked to you? No? You wait for yourself, okay. Thanks.